So thank you, Ignite Events, and thank you to the audience as well for joining me today. Understandably, after a full day of presentations, I'd imagine everyone's quite exhausted, but the opportunity we have to present today, it's definitely unique, and it's definitely going to be worth your time. So Altair Minerals, we're an ASX-listed gold company, and I joined about 20 months ago with the sole purpose of looking across the globe for a world-class asset. And I'm pleased to say, after 20 months, reviewing over countless projects and hours of due diligence, we finally transacted and pulled the trigger on what is truly an exceptional opportunity, and one which I believe is also the most exciting listed opportunity on the ASX today for gold. So just given the time constraints, I am going to try to race through this presentation as quickly as I can. So jumping right into our cap structure, we're sitting at an $86 million market cap. At the bottom, you can see our share price. It's had a considerable appreciation since we first announced this transaction in early August. And as an investor, you may be looking at that and think, I've missed the boat here. I'm here to tell you today that is absolutely not the case. In fact, it's here today for the first time we're presenting this project to the public. It was just yesterday, we completed due diligence, we formalized the transaction and finalized the deal. So really now we'll be going global, presenting the project internationally to institutions and investors. And that means today marks day one for us. And it's actually the best opportunity to get on board while we're still at our infancy stages of what will sooner or later become Guyana's largest gold company. So this slide is fairly important to understand to really grasp and come to an appreciation as to what we've just accomplished with this transaction. So in Guyana, the Mining Act, it's essentially split up your permits into 1 to 5 kilometre square blocks, and they've arbitrarily distributed that amongst private Guyanese citizens. So if you look at the image to your top right, you'll see what that looks like in Guyana, for example. And you know what that means is if you were to come to me today and say, Faheem, I want to acquire a 100 kilometre square gold project in Guyana, I'll tell you that you're looking at dealing with at least 10 different parties, having to negotiate and trying to get them on the same terms on the table to agree. This itself, this fragmentation issue, is the crux of why Guyana still today remains almost completely unexplored, even though it shares the same geology, the same greenstone belts as West Africa, and we know those gold belts have multiple world-class deposits. So what Altair has achieved today through this transaction is really, we haven't just solved this fragmentation issue, we've leveraged it to a point we have established a monopoly of all the gold exploration ground in the entire country. And as far as I know, there's not another mining company in the world that has accomplished that, and that's something you can't put a value on. So how did we accomplish this? Well, we essentially struck a deal with the largest private gold mining conglomerate in the country. Our vendors, they are a third-generation mining company, a mining family, sorry, and they're also the largest gold permit holders in Guyana. So Greater Oko today, it sits at 590 kilometers squared, which already makes us the largest gold project in Guyana's history. And we're not here looking for one deposit. This is the same sort of greenstone gold belts we have in West Africa. We know it hosts multiple tier 1 assets. So we're here looking for multiple as well. And so when you think about Altair and where it's going to be, you really should be looking at Altair as a multi-asset gold company. So this is a snapshot of our project area. I mean, the key takeaway on this slide is if you look at the right-hand side, you're going to see that black line that runs down the page. That's the Oko shear. So that Oko shear in its history has been only explored by 2 companies. Those 2 companies have both gone from a microcap to over $1 billion valuation just in the last 5 years. Those 2 companies, they have only explored 5 kilometers of that Oko shear. They've drilled it out. They've made 9 million ounces of discoveries. So now Altair, with this acquisition, we've stepped in as a third ever company in this district in history, but we're not stepping in with 5 kilometers, we're stepping in with 15 kilometers of that Oko shear, and you can see complete control of the entire belt. This is a zoom in of that sort of Oko shear area. This is our South Oko prospect. So you can see it's essentially the same extension of the same mineralized structure and the geology as our $2 billion neighbors to the north. Our vendors, they did a small soil sampling program back in 2022. We've now processed that data. We've already defined a gold soil anomaly that's 2 kilometers in strike. To put that in perspective, just to Oko West to our north, that exact same soil profile was 1.7 kilometers in strike, which led to their discovery and their billion-dollar takeover. Not just that, you'll see in the middle image that our sort of anomaly, gold anomaly, sits on the largest magnetic high on that Oko shear. And if you look at the left image, you'll see it's completely open to the southwest. So we really don't know how big this is yet, but we have boots on the ground right now that are testing those extensions. And on top of that, we're also doing the largest ever sampling program on the Oko shear's history. So this is another high priority target for us. This is North Peters. It's basically a high-grade drill-ready target. It sits about 40 kilometers to the west of South Oko, which you saw on the previous slide, and we own everything in between. So it just really shows you how well mineralized this entire project is. So North Peters, incredibly high-grade resource. It's a historic resource. It's 251,000 ounces at 4.91 grams per ton gold. What's important to note is that historic resource was built just from auger drilling to 30 meters depth. So the mineralization hasn't been tested on that resource below that. You can see from the subsequent diamond drillings, however, that that resource has plenty of room to grow. And the whole system is open. The Western End hold, for example, that's 109 meters at 2.04 grams per ton gold, which itself is impressive. But really what it shows you is just like South Oko, we don't know how big this is yet, but we'll be drilling this in Q1 2026 to really understand the scale of this system. At the bottom there, you're going to see a bunch of drill highlights from North Peters as well. Those highlights sort of speak for themselves, but what I can say is this, I can say with confidence that those set of drill intercepts you're looking at are the best set of gold intercepts that you will see at this summit for the next 2 days. Our value proposition, this basically summarizes just how undervalued Altair is even today. This is a list of all your active explorers across the Guyana Shield right now. Altair is not only the cheapest on this list amongst all the explorers in the Guyana Shield, but also we sit at a third of the valuation of the second cheapest and closest peer, which is Greater Gold, also in exploration stage. If you cast your eyes down on Greater Gold, towards the bottom, you're going to see their best intercept is 30 meters at 1.2 grams per ton gold. And to be honest with you, that doesn't really even make Altair's top 15 intercepts. And not just that, we have the biggest project on this list. We have a strategic monopoly. We have a deal that can't be replicated. And to give you guys ideas of this, what we're dealing with here, if you look at the land position in Guyana, our project from this single project, Greater Oko, we have over twice the land position than all of these projects you see combined put together. So that's the scale we're dealing with here. And our board and management, to give a bit of context on, who's really leading the ship here, our senior management team in Guyana. To give context, in the previous generation, you had 3 major discoveries in Guyana. You had the Omai discovery. That team went on to find Reunion Gold, which is Altair's neighbor. They built that to $1 billion takeover. You had the Aurora discovery. That team went on to find G2 Gold. They've built that today to a $1.2 billion market cap, and G2 is also Altair's neighbor. The last major discovery of the last generation was Toru Paru, which was in fact the largest discovery of the 3, and they've now joined Altair's team, and we are looking to also make the biggest discovery of this generation as well. So really, it's a world-class team for a world-class asset. And if I had to summarize, to wrap up our project takeaways, to put it into one phrase, and I'm not a fan of using this phrase. It is very cliche. We've heard every CEO at some stage use this phrase, but I'll say it anyways. Greater Oko is truly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I don't say that from a promotional aspect. I say that because it's factual. Our project already is the largest consolidated gold project in Guyana. We have a land position that can't be replicated. And because of that fragmentation issue I mentioned earlier, you're never going to see a project of this size ever again in Guyana. And this is not a land position that's on barren ground. We're talking about a land position that's sitting on pretty much the last untouched greenstone, Birimian-like greenstone on the planet that sits within a pro-mining and politically stable jurisdiction. And that's why I use that phrase. It is truly once in a lifetime. So to wrap up with gold price where it's at today, I would definitely consider taking a close look at the company, definitely consider owning the stock while we're still at our infancy, because by mid next year, we're probably going to have our first major discovery, and it's going to be the first of many. Thank you, guys. Cheers.